He dumped his black wife in front of everyone, then discovered her dad was a billionaire. The heavy mahogany doors closed with a deep thud that echoed through the lavish wood-paneled legal chamber. The chandelier above glowed like a crown over Judgment Day, casting golden reflections onto the polished table. At the center of it sat Danica, a poised black woman in her late 20s, wearing a deep red dress that hugged her elegance, not her sorrow. Her back was straight, her eyes focused on the divorce papers in front of her. She hadn't shed a single tear since Marcus, the man she once believed was her forever, humiliated her in front of over 100 people just weeks ago. Their anniversary party turned into a nightmare when he stood, tapped his glass, and announced in front of friends, family, and flashing cameras that he was divorcing her. "She married me for my family's name, for money. I finally see it now," Marcus had said, holding a champagne flute with one hand and his mother's approval with the other. His mother, the regal, silver-haired woman now seated across from Danica, hadn't even tried to hide her satisfaction that night. She had always looked at Danica like a stain on a silk tablecloth. "Marcus, darling, you're doing the right thing," she'd whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. Danica had walked out of the event in silence, her chin held high, her soul in splinters. People murmured behind her, "Guess she really was after the money." Not one of them knew she had never asked Marcus for a dime. She lived modestly, even when she had access to private jets and five-star everything. She never wore designer unless it was gifted, and every dollar she ever spent came from her own work as a nonprofit strategist. But in that circle, being humble made you look desperate. Being quiet made you suspicious. And being a black woman married into a powerful Asian family with centuries of business legacy made you invisible unless you made a mistake. Now, sitting at the long legal table, Danica felt every ounce of the pressure. Marcus sat to her right in a tailored white suit, trying too hard to look collected. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder, not out of love, but as a gesture of control, of dominance in the final moment. His other hand was tapping the table. The older woman in black, Margaret Marcus's mother, leaned forward with an air of urgency. "Let's not draw this out. You've had weeks, Danica. Sign the papers. The attorneys have other appointments," she said crisply. Danica didn't respond. She stared at the paper, its pristine surface threatening to slice her open. Her pearl necklace gleamed faintly with each breath she took. "What's the point of dragging this? You got your five-star life for a little while. Now let my son go," Margaret added, her voice sharp. Marcus's fingers tightened on Danica's shoulder, not out of affection, but to push her forward. "You know this is what's best for both of us," he murmured, leaning in. "You'll land on your feet. You always do. You're resilient." Danica slowly reached for the pen but paused midway. Her fingers hovered. She hadn't touched the papers yet. Every part of her wanted to scream, not because she still loved him, that had been extinguished in public, but because of the lie. She had loved him fully, given him her time, her loyalty, and even protected him from knowing things about her that she thought would burden his pride. Because if there's one thing she had learned about Marcus early on, his ego was fragile and his need to be the provider was his whole identity. He never knew who her father was. She had kept that sealed away because she never wanted him to feel small. She wanted to build something together from scratch, not handouts, not privilege. And now he sat beside her, smirking subtly, believing he had won something. Margaret tapped the table impatiently. "Danica, if you delay this any longer, we'll file a motion and take it out of this room. But if you sign now, we walk away clean. Quiet, you won't be embarrassed again." Danica turned her eyes slightly toward Margaret, her gaze cool, unreadable. The clock on the wall ticked louder. It was 2 minutes past the hour. Her lawyer had not arrived, or so they thought. The air was thick. Marcus looked around, lips twitching. "You didn't even bring a legal team?" he asked under his breath. "That's unfortunate." Danica finally moved her hand and touched the pen. Her fingers gripped it with calm precision, but she didn't sign. Instead, she looked up, slowly, and held Marcus's gaze. His eyes faltered. "You really think you understand everything, don't you?" she asked softly, her voice velvet-wrapped steel. Marcus blinked, unprepared for the steadiness in her tone. "What's that supposed to mean?" Margaret rolled her eyes. "Don't play games now. Just sign the damn thing." Danica smiled faintly, but there was no joy in it. Suddenly, a faint knock echoed from the grand doors at the far end of the room. Everyone turned. The assistant outside peeked in. "There's someone here to see Miss Danica. He said he's her father." Marcus's fingers slid off her shoulder. Margaret sat up straight. Danica gently laid the pen down beside the paper. "Let him in," she said, with the calm of a queen at war. The heavy doors creaked open with slow, deliberate weight, revealing a tall figure in a charcoal-gray suit, his presence instantly commanding. His stride was smooth, but there was something thunderous in the way he carried himself, quiet but world-moving. Marcus froze. The older woman in black, Margaret, blinked hard, her expression suddenly unsure. No one had prepared her for this. No one had ever needed to prepare her for anything before. The man stepped into the room without a word. His dark skin gleamed under the chandelier, his silver cuff-links catching every beam of light like they had no right to be ignored. He looked to be in his late 50s, yet stood with the presence of a general, calm but undeniably dangerous in the world of money and power. He paused at the end of the table, gazing only at Danica. The faintest softness broke through his otherwise impenetrable composure. Then he took the seat beside her, where Marcus used to be. Danica turned her head slightly and gave him a small nod. "Daddy," she said gently. Marcus's face contorted. "Wait, that's your—" The man leaned back, folding one leg over the other. "Yes," he replied flatly, voice smooth but firm. "Charles Langford. Perhaps you've heard of me." Margaret gasped audibly. "Langford? Langford Media Group? But no, that can't—" "Danica Langford," Charles finished, turning his eyes to the document on the table. "You never asked her full name, did you?" The silence hit like a courtroom verdict. Marcus's throat bobbed. His smirk from earlier had fully vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. "But she never told me. She said she didn't want help. She didn't need help," Charles interrupted. "She didn't want your money. She didn't even want mine. That was her choice. She loved you. You loved what she looked like on your arm, until your mother convinced you she was beneath you." Margaret snapped out of her silence. "That's not fair." "No," Charles said, turning to her with razor-edged calm. "What's not fair is raising a son so insecure he'd rather destroy a good woman than confront the bigotry you handed him like an inheritance." Margaret stood slowly, pressing her palms to the table. "This is absurd. You don't get to storm in and insult my parenting, in the middle of a private proceeding. Is it private? Charles countered, narrowing his eyes. Was it private when you publicly humiliated my daughter at that event? When you let your son announce divorce over hors d'oeuvres and champagne? Marcus looked away, jaw clenched. Danica sat still, letting the firestorm swirl around her like a hurricane she had finally stopped trying to hold back. I asked you for nothing, she said softly, her voice cutting through the room like truth through silk. Not a name, not a dollar. I wanted a partner. You gave me a performance. Marcus looked at her, suddenly small. I didn't know. I thought you thought I was beneath you, she finished for him. That's all you needed to think to throw me away. Charles reached into his briefcase and pulled out a second document, heavier, legal, bound. He slid it across the table toward Margaret and Marcus. This is a non-disclosure and retraction agreement. You will cease all defamatory statements against my daughter. You will also issue a public clarification, stating you were misinformed and that Danica never asked for nor received any financial support from your family. If you do not, we will proceed with legal action for slander. Margaret stared at the papers like they were poison. You're threatening us? She snapped. No, Charles replied calmly. I'm protecting my daughter, something you failed to teach your son how to do. A long pause. No one moved. Then Marcus stood, slowly. I want to fix this, he said, voice low, cracking. Danica, please. I was wrong. I was scared. You didn't deserve that. You were always better than I ever was. Danica didn't blink. She turned fully to him now, her red dress catching the chandelier's gold light like royalty. No, she said quietly. You were right the first time. I am better than the man who would abandon me for his mother's approval. But I'm no longer interested in making you realize that. I'm here to sign these papers. She picked up the pen, hand steady, and signed her name with a graceful stroke. Marcus looked like a child watching a door close forever. Charles stood beside her, offering his arm. She took it. As they walked toward the door, Danica paused. You don't have to worry about saving face, she said over her shoulder. No one's looking at you anymore. They left without another word. Marcus sank into the chair. Margaret remained frozen, her mouth a bitter line. Outside the building, Danica stepped into the back seat of a sleek black car. The driver shut the door quietly. You okay? Charles asked, eyes soft now. I am, she said, leaning back. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. You held your head up even when they tried to bury you. Danica smiled, not the tight smile of survival, but the first real one in weeks. I didn't bury them, she said. I just stopped planting myself in their soil. The car pulled away, the sun gleaming off the windows as it disappeared down the tree-lined avenue. The daughter no one saw coming, and the father no one dared underestimate. If this story touched your heart, give it a like. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this. And don't forget to tell us where you're watching from.